So, Action 52 tends to be regarded as one of the worst games ever made. But to be fair, a multi-cart like this has never been done before. There were the illegal ones that featured stolen games, and there was the Maxi 15 that had games that were previously standalone titles. But Action 52 was different. These games were all made from the ground up specifically to be included in Action 52. So what went wrong, and are the developers to blame? Or were they trying as hard as they could? Well, let's take a look. What's going on, guys? It's Podrez coming at you with number 14 for the year. So we're gonna jump right into Action 52, but first, I actually offer merch now. Right now I'm offering t-shirts, coffee mugs, face masks, and more. I tried to be as fair as possible with the pricing. I don't expect to make that much money off of this, but I just thought it would be cool. So just go to shop.podrez.net. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button right there. It only takes a second, but it helps the community grow. Anyway, let's get right to the video.
If you want the ultimate game challenge, you have to get Action 52.
Yeah, it's so cool! 52 games in one, and you can even play it on Nintendo! Man, it's awesome!
In the early 90s, Mario Gonzalez, who was a college student, was working for a recording studio. He was a sound engineer, but had an interest in game development, and he would receive the opportunity of a lifetime. Mario would meet Vince Perry, who, out of sheer coincidence, was looking for game designers for his new business idea. Vince was a businessman who recently discovered multicarts. His son had a multicart that contained 40 games, all of which featured stolen property. Vince wanted to make a more legitimate multicart that had games that were actually developed in-house. It just so happened that Mario and a few of his friends were very much into game development, so Vince hired them for his new project. The agreement was that Mario and his friends would create 52 games for this new multicart that Vince wanted. While they were all passionate about making games, Vince was only passionate about making a quick buck. So with a business idea and programmers who were willing to execute his idea, the company, Active Enterprises, was born. Vince would fly them all out to Salt Lake City, where they would receive 1 week of training. They were actually supplied an NES development kit, which is more than what companies like Color Dreams had, so that's something. Mario and his friends would be given a time constraint. They had only 3 months to develop 52 games from the ground up. So it's worth mentioning, this is very similar to the Maxi 15 game, which was another multicart, but there's a big difference here. Maxi 15 featured games from multiple companies, and there were games that already existed on the NES, so it's not like they developed 15 games all at once and threw them on a cartridge. Do you see the problem here? Not only is 1 week of training pretty lousy, but they only had 3 months to develop 52 games. But despite the shortcomings, the team was excited to program for the NES, so they agreed to the terms. I really want to showcase here how difficult it is to develop 52 games in 3 months. For one, you have to come up with an idea for a game. Imagine trying to come up with 52 original ideas and then make graphics and music for each of them. And what genre will they be? What characters are you going to have in them? Anyone would have a really hard time pulling this off in 3 months, but somehow, they did it. The game was released under the name Action 52, and it would retail for $199, which is extremely high for an NES game. So how did they come up with 52 games in 3 months? Well, you're not going to believe what they did. So the game starts off with the song It Takes Two. I assume they didn't get authorization, but it sounds nice for NES standards. But already, I have a complaint, because there's no way to skip this introduction. Every time you reset the game, you have to watch this. So we have a bunch of choices. I'm just going to start with the game Non-Human. So it's a platformer, and already I'm confused. I mean, what's this character we're playing as? And what's with the green heads at the bottom? None of this makes any sense. The controls are really bad, where you can only shoot in 2 directions and you can't duck. Some enemies are on the ground, so you're completely defenseless against them. The game has really weird gravity. When you jump, you move up at a fixed speed, stop for a second, and then fall at a fixed speed. There's no physics here, and it looks really bad. You can tell by just looking at this game, it's very low quality. Alright, now let's check out Rocket Jockey. It's a shooter where you play as a cowboy with a lasso riding a rocket. That sentence doesn't even make sense. Yeah, I don't know. How did they come up with this? You can tell they didn't really test this one because you can easily just camp at the bottom and not get hit. And once you beat level 2, it just sends you back to level 1. The graphics are just lazy. It's just the same JPEG copy-pasted a bunch of times on a red background. Yeah, this shouldn't even count as a game. But at least this game works. In the game Star Evil, which is another shooter, when you defeat the boss, nothing happens. The game soft locks and there's nothing you can do. And this is the first level of the game, so you're really not getting much of a game here either. There's 2 games, Shooting Gallery and They Came, which let you play for a few minutes, but then they crash. I tried multiple times, but the same thing happens. They go to a black screen and then I have to reset. 2 of the games don't even work at all. If you select Alfredo, for example, the game just crashes, so you're not even getting 52 games here. But to be fair, this issue was fixed in the revision of Action 52. Yeah, that's right, there's 2 versions of Action 52, but only Revision B allows you to play all 52 games. Some games play fine without crashing, but have some weird glitches. In Bubblegum Rosie, for example, the first stage is a platformer, and the second stage is a driving simulation. If you get a game over on stage 2 and start over from the beginning, the game still thinks you're in driving mode, so yeah. And it's not like I was making frame-perfect inputs here, this was just a casual playthrough and I already found this. Anyone could have found this within 5 minutes. How didn't they catch this? A lot of these games have really poor level design. In Robbie Robot, for example, you can just walk to the right and keep shooting and you'll beat the stage easily. In G-Force, you can just camp in one spot and you won't lose, and there's only 3 levels altogether and then it just sends you back to level 1. In the game Mash Man, there's only 3 levels and they're all exactly the same, just with a different color palette. The enemies don't move at all and there's just no challenge here. You can just jump over everything. In Manchester, you can easily clip into the floor and skip the entire level. Speaking of shooters, most of the games on here are either that or platformers. You don't get much else either. Even the game Jigsaw, I mean, this has got to be a puzzle game, right? No, it's a platformer. Why so many of the same type of games? The graphics are very hit and miss, mainly miss. Some games like Bubblegum Rosie actually don't look too bad for Action 52 standards, while others like the game Time Warp look like a mess. It just looks like they placed random garbage on the playfield. The game Micro Mike, I don't even know what design they were going for here. There's a lot of inconsistencies with this collection. Some games have different names on the title screen versus on the menu. Some games have a visible life bar while other games don't. It's almost like each game was made by a different person and none of them actually shared notes with each other. Pretty much all the games on here feature really strange characters and graphics. How did they come up with these? This is what happens when you only have 3 months to make 52 games. You become desperate and you access random garbage that's in your brain. I will give some credit. A few of the games look like they had more care put into them. In Streamers, you migrate from one platform to another by shooting a string at it. You can only shoot diagonally, so you have to place your character in the right angles in order to reach the platforms you want. This is actually a pretty cool concept, and it actually inspired a homebrew NES game. Another game, Billy Bob, has some decent animation and the graphics aren't too bad. In Haunted Hill, the game itself is nothing special, but the graphics are better than most of the games on here. Overall, you're really not getting 52 games here. Some of them either don't work, crash after level 1 or 2, or don't qualify as games at all. Most of these you can easily beat using cheap tactics. They put way too many shooters and platformers on here too, and you can tell they ran out of ideas. I'll play devil's advocate though. Knowing the time constraints that these developers had, I can understand why the game turned out the way it did. Remember, these developers were passionate about game development. It was not completely their fault. With that said, there's still one game we haven't talked about yet. In 1994, Active Enterprise set up a booth for the Consumer Electronics Show. Their booth advertised both the NES and Genesis versions of Action 52, along with their upcoming portable console, the Action Gamemaster. This would have been compatible with the NES, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis. However, this thing was never released. Honestly, it looks awful. I mean, look how small the screen is and how big the unit itself is. And I highly doubt this would have been able to play 3 different consoles. There's just no way. Not only did they want to release a new console, but they were pushing a mascot, the Cheetahmen. According to the brochures they gave out during the event, they were planning on releasing toys, more games featuring the Cheetahmen, and even creating a cartoon series. In fact, a commercial promoting Action 52 was posted on YouTube by Mario Gonzalez himself, but it never aired on TV. Active Enterprise really put all their eggs in this basket. With that said, the last game on the Action 52 cartridge was Cheetahmen. Could this be the game they put all their time and effort into? Let's take a look. They definitely put a little bit more care into this one. You actually get an intro that explains the story, and each stage tells you about the character you're playing as. The game offers more diversity too. There's both vertical and horizontal scrolling, and there's even a beat-em-up style stage. You also play as multiple characters that have different abilities. The graphics, while still not great, they're at least more interesting than what we got in games like Rocket Jockey. So it's clear they put more time and effort into this one. But that's not saying much. Cheetahmen still has a lot of the same problems as the rest of the games on here. I really hate that you can't skip the intro at the beginning. You have to watch this every time you reset the console. Even though the graphics are a little bit better, I'm still not a fan of how it looks. The Cheetahmen themselves look very bland, and they have very few frames of animation. The game has an infinite jump glitch that's very easy to perform. It literally only took me a couple minutes to discover this one. Another really weird glitch, in Stage 3 when climbing the ladder, you can just jump through the ceiling and end up at the bottom of the screen. Like seriously, how did they not catch these problems during testing? The controls are bad. Your attack is very wimpy with no range, and you can't duck in this game either. You can take multiple hits, but there's no visible life bar, so you have no way of knowing if your last hit will result in a death. Between the 3 characters, Hercules is my least favorite one by far. He's way too big of a target, and there's no way to shelter yourself against projectiles. So overall, this isn't as bad as most of the games on this collection, but this was supposed to be their mascot, so I'm surprised they didn't put more time into this one. When Vince Perry saw the potential in multicarts, he hired a team of programmers who were passionate about game development. But he didn't give his developers enough time to work on the game, and they received very poor training. They only had 3 months to create 52 games from the ground up. So as a result, we got a bunch of half-complete games and a bunch of weird ideas. Vince was really hoping the Cheetahmen franchise would make it big, but the game itself had a lot of the same problems as the others. Had Vince decided to give his developers more time to work on Action 52, we might be looking at a different game. Hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, hit that like button. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the subscribe button for more content. Both of these things really help the channel grow. If you have anything to share, feel free to leave a comment. I read every single comment on this channel, and I'm pretty good at replying back. Anyway, have a good one.